Okay, so my recording that I did before ran out. So this is what the finished product will look like when I do this demo again. Remember to keep a bleed sheet or two. I have a couple under here. I'm working with the marker. I will post the links and some information on where to find marker. This is just regular copy paper that I'm using. So in the last demonstration, I showed you how to use the light table and from a crow feed, how to draw using pencil your figure that you're going to use for your fashion illustration. So this is my pencil drawing here. I have made a couple of copies. I made 3 copies. And this is a perfect example of why you want to make copies, because now I need to go in and do it again for the demonstration. But if I wanted to change a color, if I messed up, if the page got stained, I could easily go in and just ink this again. So I'm going to take my copy, not my original pencil drawing, and this is what I'm inking. I want to make sure that I have a strike off sheet just to test my marker colors because they're not always the same exact color as the top. And I'm going to go in and just redo the demo. So skin color, again, this has the broad tip and the fine point tip, so what we call a chisel. I like the brush tip, but I was quickly ordering and that's not the one that I ordered this time. So I'm gonna go in and again, carefully just kind of fill in the skin color, making sure I'm going in the same direction. If you go out of the lines a little bit, that's fine. And that's expected with new markers because they are very um, heavy with ink. Try to go in the same direction. Anything that I know is going to be a different color, I'm trying to avoid coloring it in. I'm just going to kind of color around it as best I can. Okay, and new markers, a good set of markers should blend pretty well. So I'm gonna just fill in the skin colors in sections. Again, going in the same direction. And in fashion illustration, we usually dictate a light source. So you can just color this flat, but if I had a light source coming from the right, I could go ahead and just leave just a little bit of the top of her skin lighter or use the white of the page and keep it completely white. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're just doing a sort of loose illustration. So I'm going to leave just the top of her arm right there white, and we'll use the white of the page for her hair later too. And I'll show you how to shade it in. So this is a 2-piece outfit. I am filling in just like the midriff section. Okay, and I'm gonna just kind of let that dry because then I'm gonna show you how to go in and do some shading. So what I want to do is figure out where would I have shadow on the body. So definitely wherever the garment is touching the body, I have a little bit of shadow. So I'm gonna just go over this a little bit more, go over it again. So anywhere the garment's touching the body, under the garment. So I have a little bit of shadow here, under the arm, inside the elbow. Under this arm, inside the hand and fingers. And as it dries, you'll see that it'll start to blend in a little better. So wherever my necklace is sitting, there should be some shadow around it. probably behind the earrings, the base of her neck here. Just a little bit around her chin area. We would have some shadow. Okay. And I can go in and try to keep layering it, but there's only so much you can do before you'd have to go on something like color pencil. Okay, but you can see how she's starting to look a little bit more three-dimensional when you add layers of color. Okay, so next I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna just do her hair and we're gonna use black for that hair color. And I'm gonna use the chisel tip. Now these I'm not that crazy about because they're not as big as the skin color marker that I just used. But they're actually not as bad. May actually be better for beginners. So I'm using the chisel tip and I'm gonna just indicate strokes for the hair instead of a shape so it looks a little bit more believable. And it's gonna be a little denser at the root. So wherever it's kind of tightly gathered. Okay, and then I'm gonna go in with the fine point tip and just kind of define the hair. And right now it is looking like a shape and just a little messy. So or a little too neat. So I'm gonna just make it look a little messy on purpose. That looks like actual hair and a little loose. And hairlines are always kind of hard. So I'm gonna just try to indicate it here. And we'll do that kind of messy bun situation here. Okay, so then now I want to go in and I'm gonna just lightly do her eyebrow shape here with the fine point and give her an eyelash. It's kind of dramatic. And then I'm gonna go back because I didn't do kind of like the inside of her ear, but have a little bit of shadow here. So next I'm gonna go in and do her garment. So again, you want to make sure it dries every time you switch color, especially if you're going up against a color, because it will bleed onto the other marker, especially if it's lighter. I won't really be able to layer with this marker because this is so bright, such a bright color. And then here, I'm just gonna kind of indicate because I want the flowers to look a little three-dimensional. So I'm gonna just loosely color that in because I'm gonna go in with a darker green and I want some of the white to show. So it will look like they're actual flowers, like three dimensions. So again, I'm just coloring, trying to go in the same direction to get full coverage on my page. This is a little bit easier if you have the brush tip markers. And again, I'm just trying to fill in and get full coverage. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna go in and give her. I'm gonna use this color, just an eye here. And when I go in with her, I think I use this for a lip color. But I'm gonna go in and just give her a little bit of a lip color here. And then as far as jewelry, I'm going in with the fine tip and I want it to look kind of three-dimensional. So again, using that light source, I'm gonna just color sort of like a C shape on the left-hand side of it. So they will actually look three-dimensional, like the light is hitting them more as well. And if you wanted it to be a little bit more dramatic, you could go in with a white gel pen and just kind of drop on there. Next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and I'm gonna color in the leash here. This is part of it. This is part of it. And I'm gonna just use a gray hardware. And the next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and just color in the dog. I think I used really light. Color for the dog. So I'm gonna go in and just color the dog because he's gonna have spots. I'm gonna color just the basic, like skin color, fur color for the dog. This is my first time ever illustrating a dog, so. Okay, I'm gonna give it a little brown nose here. And then I wonder if I should do slightly lighter spots on the dog. So I did spots on the other dog, so we'll do the same thing here. And just kind of go in and create some just little organic shapes to give the dog some spots. Okay, and then I did some just like tiny spots also to make it look a little bit more realistic. so then there's our dog skin color. A little bit too much peach. Okay, so next I'm gonna go in and draw the flower. So we had that fluorescent green color that's gonna match the owner's dress. And then I'm gonna use the blue, so we'll let that dry. And I'll go ahead and start coloring here to fill in for the denim. So this is the top of the bucket hat that you'd actually see. And then I'm gonna color in this portion here. And the ties. So these little ruffles that would be added would actually be the green. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill those in. Okay, and then if I wanted to go back in and just kind of again create some shadow, I'd have some definitely under the collar. Probably here, the bottom of the garment near the seams. Definitely under the flower here. And the top part of the ties would be a lot darker. Again, this is just to give it a little bit of pop, so it'll pop off the page a little bit more three-dimensional. It's a little hard to see, so this camera is not the best, but I'm gonna just kind of hold it up so you can take a look at it. Okay, so everything's colored in here. I probably would want to, the eyes not looking dark enough there. So I don't look too scary. So this is the finished illustration, and then the next thing that I'll demonstrate is optional technical drawings. So I'll show how to do those. Those are completely optional. So all that I need from you is the mood board, and then the fashion illustration, and then I'll have a separate video on how to mount these. Okay, so this is your croquis for your flat. So just like a croquis, if we were drawing this for fashion illustration for a man, woman, or child, we would just want a body with a front view, back view. Sometimes we do side view. For these purposes, we're doing the side view. Now remember, the technical drawing or the flat is optional. I just want to show you how to do it. You can also use this to figure out your design on paper. So just to put design notes and sort of sketch it out before you go in to finalize it. So again, I'm gonna use the light table, or you can use a window to do your tracing and drawing. And again, I'm using mechanical pencil to draw. And I'm gonna draw the dog outfit that was on my sketch here. Okay, so I could do two different views. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just do the hat and then do a different, just the side view. So I'm gonna draw the bucket hat and I'm gonna draw it as if it were on the dog. I'm not gonna trace the actual dog. So I'm gonna draw the garment as if the dog were wearing it. And I just want some nice clean lines here. And it does have a little tie. Okay, so that's the hat. And then next to it, I'm gonna just move this over a little bit. So when we draw flats, we usually stagger them. I didn't actually go in and draw the flower that's supposed to be on the hat. So I'll go in and kind of draw that cluster of flowers. And we're gonna go over this with micron or fine black pen. So if it's not perfect in pencil, that's fine. We will not make copies of the flat, so we'll go directly over the pencil with the ink. So now I'm gonna go ahead and draw as if the garment were hanging on a hanger and I could see inside of it. So that means for the dog, I would see inside the neckline. And I'm gonna draw the collar. And then just the rest of the garment. Again, as if the dog were wearing it. I wouldn't be able to see inside of that. And what I wanted this to look like was just like a open jean jacket sort of cape that would be on the dog that the lime green ruffle fabric was added to. So nothing too extravagant. So then this would have the ruffle added. And then this. Will also have the ruffle added. And then I'd have my little buttons here, and then across here, and then one here. Okay, so then I'm gonna go in and this would be the inside of the collar here, so I'll shade that. And I just wanna make sure that there's nothing that's really missing. I would probably see the inside of the other side if the dog wasn't in there, so I'm gonna draw that. So that it looks three-dimensional. Because this is a side view. And then I do have that little seam going across the back. And I do want to go in when I go in with ink and indicate my top stitching. So I'm going to use micron pens that look like this. I ordered these from Amazon. They're about $10. A lot cheaper than they were about 10 years ago. So, and you get different sizes for the nibs of the pen, which are written on the top. You can also just use an extra fine point Sharpie or just this is a Paper Mate Flair pen, and this would be fine too. So I'm gonna go in and use probably my 0.1 micron. Yes. For details, and then a 0.3 for drawing the outline of my flag. Okay. So I really don't need the light board. And I'm just gonna go in and start inking my flat sketch. So I'm gonna go around the outside of everything first. And usually the outside of your flat has the thickest line weight. So sometimes I'll go over it with a darker or heavier nib pen. Try to have a nice steady hand. Okay, and then I'm gonna go around the outline. Just the outline, so nothing on the inside. And just try to have a steady hand. So I'm actually gonna go in with the 5. And I can make this a little darker, or I can go in with the flare pen. Because what's gonna happen is easy to read flat has a thicker outline. So you can tell all the parts of the garment. This is actually what you would give for your line sheet to have something made. So you want to make sure that you can see all the seams clearly, all the design details, pockets, things like that, and read them easily on a page. Flats are not the most interesting, but it's the way that we communicate our design ideas in fashion. And this is also the selling tool. So even if you are a sales rep at a trade show, you can discuss your design details with the factory, with someone who's wanting to order units, and they can, see what this garment is going to look like and what options you do. So I'm going to go in with that 0.1 and do my seam details here. Draw my flowers. And any extra pencil line, what we'll do is kind of later go in and erase those after all the ink dries so it doesn't smear. So just creating my fine lines here. I can see that my pencil line is kind of crooked. So I'm gonna try to correct it with the ink. They're not gonna look perfect because it is hand drawn. And you're probably used to seeing flats that were done in Adobe Illustrator, which are perfect. Okay, and then I'm gonna go in and draw my buttons. Way more buttons than I have on my illustration, but it's fine. And I have one on my collar. And then I had lots of top stitching, so I could go in with that 005 as a small to do the top stitching. So there should be top stitching here, which I'm just gonna do with a dash line. There should be some at the bottom of the collar. There should be some on the seam on the center back of the garment. At the bottom band here. Here. Okay, so there's my top stitching. So here you have flats. If you have a cool gray marker, sometimes what I like to do, because right now this is finished, but you can see that I indicated the inside of my garment and a couple spots here. And this is just a little extra tip, something that you can do. Let me see if I can find a really light gray, cool gray. I think this might be as cool as we do. So I'm gonna go in with the cool gray color, and I can fill in what would be the inside of my garment just to make this look a little bit more three-dimensional. And again, we can kind of shade it. So I'm gonna use the white of the paper in the middle and not color it in completely. Just so we can make this look a little bit three-dimensional. So this would be the inside of the garment as well here. And I'm just gonna kind of let that dry. We do not color in the flats. Usually when you see flats colored in, it's not when they're hand drawn, it's only when they're done in Adobe Illustrator. So you can show all of the color options. These are just fashion flats, just to show basic construction. Okay, so I'm gonna go back over this and kind of shade it a little bit, make my corners darker. So the flat sort of pops off the page here. Okay, and not too much of a difference, but it kind of gives you a little bit of pop here. Normally, so I did not draw an 11 by 17 page here. Normally what we'd have is, I didn't leave a lot of space. So this would kind of be jam-packed on the page. But normally what we would do is situate our flats on the page with our fashion illustration, just like this. So you'd have, let's say for her top, if we were doing her top, right now I'm just concerned with the dog's garment, but I'd do the front of her top, the back of her top, the front of the skirt, and then the back of the skirt, and they would be in a step down, just like you see here. The front of the flat is always shown first, and then it would step down with the same garment. And we always put the flats on the page in the order that we wear the garment. So top should be at the top, jacket should be at the top of the page, and then pants, skirts, things like that should be at the bottom. Okay, so these are flats. This is the fashion illustration. And then the next thing that I'll show is how to mount everything properly on your artboards.